This meeting is being recorded.
Oh my God, here we are in the US of A. Thanks for your time. We've got some new faces today, so great to see you particularly. Could you just briefly introduce yourselves? I'll go around from sort of around the screen as I see it. Penny, good to see you.
Hi, I'm Penny. I'm co-founder of Inspiring Norfolk, which is a website that was set up post-lockdown to get children to and young people to engage more with their local areas and in particularly nature as well. Former head teacher, I can say that, as of the 31st of August. So I'm now an education consultant and I'm working freelance for local authority and for various MATs as well.
Lovely, thank you. Isabel.
Hi everyone, I'm representing Norfolk Wildlife Trust. I'm the Senior Education Officer at the Norfolk Wildlife Trust. So that means I lead on all the education delivery and preparation side of things here. So working with children and families, as well as schools, visiting our reserves and other wild spaces in Norfolk. And we do a lot of project work and attend lots of events. So hello everyone.
Ed.
Yeah, hello, I'm Ed Stocker. I'm working for the Norfolk Coast Partnership as the Farming in Protected Landscapes Advisor. It's a DEFRA funded project for areas of outstanding natural beauty across England. I'm also employed by Norfolk County Council, so I've got a slight crossover with schools and education and council owned land. And I might have some money available for projects in community groups or schools.
I'm glad you said that because I was going to say at the end, and you're a man with money, but you still got some, have you?
Potentially, there's still some left, yeah, and next year as well.
Jolly good, excellent. Thank you very much, Kate.
So I'm Kate Jackson. I'm freelance. I have lots of hats. My main hat at the moment is education lead for Wild East. And so I've just been putting together a schools program that we're now rolling out as pilot and launch schools, which is all based around forest gardening and kind of those permaculture principles and rewilding kind of combined school grounds. I also work at Beccles Forest School, so I'm a forest school leader as well as a primary school teacher. I'm a maths mastery specialist. I have a lot of hats, and I'm involved in local community activism, be it transition town stuff, green political party stuff. Was that apolitical enough?
Getting controversial now. Yeah.
All sorts. So yeah, lots of hats, many hats.
Good, thank you, Kate. Charlie.
Yeah, hi everyone. Charlie Blandy. I am a public health officer at Norfolk County Council, and I'm within public health within Norfolk County Council. I'm in the natural and built environment team. So obviously, just looking at how the work that's happening aligns with public health really, and how we can help out.
Thank you very much. Emma, good to see you.
Good afternoon. Hi, I'm just unmuting myself. I am a community focused officer from North Norfolk, working with Children's Services Early Help. We support families and children and connect with our partners such as schools and various other people.
And you're obviously on the way to the moon, is that right? You managed to hitch a ride on
yes,
that.
I hadn't chosen this one particularly for today, but it seems to be my default Zoom background.
Jolly good. Alice, I don't know whether you can talk to us or whether it's just you can hear us but you can't speak, I suspect. As I said earlier,
yeah,
Alice.
I could roughly introduce Alice as a colleague from Wild East.
Thank you.
Alice is the school's program director and has a marketing background. So it's been
and we'll be talking a bit more about communications in a minute when Alice has been very helpful with. Lovely, thank you. Finally, Claire, last but not least. Hello, Claire.
Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see you all. I have got my camera off because it keeps saying I have low bandwidth is what it keeps telling me, and I keep freezing, so apologies. Claire Dyke, social prescribing lead for Norfolk and Waveney Integrated Care System. So I'm here to support the health element, I guess, of how we can introduce nature first into all our health settings, and that's sort of why I'm here.
Great. Thanks very much, Claire. Nice to see you. Well, here we are. We are recording. The purpose of today was really just to take stock of where we got to. Obviously, we've had a holiday period, and I think the fact that we've got several absentees today is an indication that some people are still on holiday or just gone on holiday. But let's take stock and think about where we go next, basically. I sent round, hopefully you all got it, a slightly revised document with our vision, our approach and aims. The first thing I think is really to get any feedback on that. Has anyone got any comments on that? Does it hit the button as far as what we're trying to do you think? Hands up if you'd like to talk. Or thumbs up if you think it's okay. Or thumbs down if you think it's a load of rubbish. I really don't mind. Thumbs up, Ed. Good.
Yeah. Yes, yeah, I thought it was really good. I haven't got much to add, but it sounds really exciting.
Good.
Aims and objectives. I think it ticks so many different. It's such good wording that it could be used, you know, to bring in different funding or fit in with other projects. It's good to have it a bit broader, isn't it, to start with, and covering that whole range, that whole age group. I think we discussed at the last meeting about which age groups to target.
Yeah.
And so having that wider, you know, 0 to 25 keeps the opportunities open at the start as well, and see who we attract, see where it leads.
Yeah, that's right. You just hit on the two principal things that we added in, I think, last time, which was the age range and the collaborative approach, I think, which people felt was important to emphasise, which is now reflected in there. I did have a couple of other helpful comments, which I think are in there. One from Tim O'Riordan, who felt that we needed to separate out an aim about funding, and just to highlight that, because it may well be obvious as we get into this that we do need to seek resources to support new things if we want to push those forward or whatever. So I've separated that out. And also very helpful comment from Will, I think it was, from gosh, which organisation is it? One of the outdoor learning centres, I think, who thought it would be helpful to rather than have a mission, to have a sort of a vision. So the wording on that to slightly change, but hopefully again it reflects what we're trying to see be achieved over whatever period, you know, we hope this is going to operate for, really. Anyone else, any other comments on that? If not, we can, yeah, Kate.
Yeah, I was just going to say I particularly liked that amongst the aims, that including the about the final statement about tailoring and prioritising our efforts to address the age groups, communities and areas with the greatest difficulty accessing nature connection opportunities, like we discussed last time, rather than continuing to support and preach to the converted, that kind of,
yes. Yeah.
How do we reach more people?
Good, fine. And Ed, you got your hand up again.
Yeah, thanks. It was just the point on businesses and other organisations where it says we will connect with and seek help from businesses and seek opportunities. One of the things we discussed at the last meeting was opportunities for training or apprenticeships or some way of learning real career-based skills. So that obviously 25, you know, potentially they've been at work 8 years already, I don't know, or, you know, some people that don't want to follow an academic course.
Yeah, so
you're doing learning skills from about 16 or whatever.
Yeah, I don't have, sorry to interrupt you, I don't have the wording immediately in front of me, but do you think we ought to add something in about skills development as being one of the things that could possibly feature?
I think it could be good. It's getting the wording right, isn't it? Because we're not here to act as a training course, but if there's ways of working with businesses and organizations to develop what do they call it, transferable skills, or learn, or practical training, some work on some wording, because even if it's just going out on nature reserves and helping with practical conservation work, they are by default learning how to coppice and make paths and bridges, and
absolutely
it does give them training even if they don't realize.
Yeah, good point, thank you. I'll pick up on that. Claire.
Yeah, off the back of what Ed has just said, and I would agree with you, Ed. I had a really good meeting with a guy called Dale Edwards just this morning, actually, from Norfolk County Council, who is the business development manager for children's and adult learning, who specialises and supports learning, apprenticeships, vocations, and I wonder if he ought to be. I'm happy to forward you and link you together, Nigel, but I do
Thanks,
wonder if he would be of benefit to this group.
Yeah, no, that sounds potentially very helpful. Thank you, Claire. It also, your comment, Ed, reminds me of an email I had this morning from someone in the local integrated care system who Claire will possibly know, Shelley Ames, who works over, I think, in Great Yarmouth area. And there's a very interesting project that's being put forward, I think, by East Coast College and the James Paget Hospital, which is both about grounds maintenance, it's labelled as, on the James Paget site, but is aimed at, again, skills development, as much as sort of creating perhaps a more biodiverse hospital site, and also obviously providing opportunities for people to come together, benefit from the health and well-being angle as well. So yeah, it's an interesting little thing that's come up literally this morning. Okay, well, that's fine. Anything else anyone wants to add or subtract? Isabel, yeah.
No, I just wanted to echo what Kate said about engaging people who might not otherwise have the opportunity to. I think that's really important, because there are so many of us working with people who are already engaged, and it's all about trying to get or be able to provide access to people who would like to be involved and can't currently. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important.
Yeah. Well, again, I'll review the wording we've got on those things and see whether that perhaps could be strengthened a little bit. Thank you for that. If there's nothing else, I think the rest of the meeting is really about taking stock of where we got on the various strands of development activity that have been going on. And I appreciate that perhaps not a lot has been going on some of this because of holidays and so on. And then moving towards where we go next. And I suppose specifically the idea of a launch event, which we talked about, coming up in the next month or two. And I've got a specific possible idea on that, which I'd like to sort of run by you. So let's look at progress reports first of all. Katie Bristow, who was coordinating the discussions around existing opportunities and thinking about new, which I think you were involved with, Kate. Unfortunately, last minute couldn't make today. She tells me that I don't think there's been any further meetings of that group. So basically, we're still, I think, where we were before, which was basically there as a shared document where you've mapped a whole range of different nature connection opportunities that you're already aware of. And I mean, I've got one or two things that have developed since then, which I think are very interesting, that might contribute to new ideas and new opportunities. But is there anything you wanted to say about that, Kate, in terms of where you've got to and how you see the next perhaps 2 or 3 weeks going? What's the next stage, do you think, in that?
Yeah, so other people have added to the document, which is great. It's on the Google Drive. And I think what we probably want to look at is the balance of regional materials and resources available and the kind of national schemes, because actually as soon as you start adding the national stuff that's available, it becomes a really big list of resources available for teachers. And I think the power of having local resources where you're actually potentially able to speak to the people who've created the resources or have that direct input, I think is possibly the power of this network, is the Norfolk element of it. So it's also been really interesting to discover how many directories there are already out there of green resources, but also, they don't necessarily stay updated. So, I found an amazing resource, but there was nothing newer than 2015 because they'd actually put on it when each resource had been created, which I did think was a stroke of genius, but it also made me realize how outdated the directory was. So, so yeah, I think that focusing particularly on the Norfolk element of it, I think, would be really powerful.
Thank you. And I think it's fair to say, you reminded me that the document you referred to is up to now at least, been really focused on, as you've referred to, the sort of the resources that are available to different providers, principally, I guess, around learning. That'd be fair.
It's mostly schools resources.
Yeah, which is fine. I mean, that's great that, you know, bringing all that together has proved to be worthwhile in itself. But I guess I would suggest that I think the next stage is to say, well, what are the opportunities that are already out there? We can talk about school-based things. We can talk about, you know, things like the Wildlife Trust events, RSPB, and other organisations. You know, what they do in terms of ongoing programmes, festivals, events, other learning opportunities. And I was going to say to Katie, and as we're recording this will be the minutes of the meeting, if you like. Hopefully Katie can get your group together again in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and you can start to pull that information together. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, I think it's how do we make the information of most use to people, you know, what is the information people need? And I suppose it's always that tricky thing. I mean, you know, anyone who's involved in organising local events will know that you can cover the area with posters, things in the paper, stuff all over social media, and you will still get loads of people after the event going, I didn't know about it, I never heard anything about it. So it is that difficulty of, you know, people have got to be proactively looking for information as well. It's always that, yeah, it's that difficulty of how we reach people. And I suppose the only answer is you have it in lots of different formats and lots of different places. Yeah.
Oh, I guess multimedia approach, I guess, is the phrase, really, isn't it? That we need to cover many spaces as we can. Penny, did you want to add anything for your perspective with Inspiring Norfolk? Because I know you've done quite a lot in terms of, would be fair to say, web-based resources and links and things like that?
Web-based resources, but doing very much what Kate was saying. So there'd be something about, you know, seals in Norfolk, but then signposting them to a seal organisation to help, and then things that link in, but very much to do with schools, but also what they could do at families at home. Because I used to work for Norfolk Family Learning many years ago. So that's always really dear to my heart, because I think, like you were saying, Kate, it's about it's finding out what those barriers are for those families, because sometimes it's not even necessarily about money or accessibility. It's just they don't think it's for them. They don't think, so it's trying to break down those barriers in some way, isn't it? And enter, you know, getting them young is always key. I think going into play groups and visiting them with ideas of what they can do, so they feel part of something.
Yeah, good point.
But with Inspiring Norfolk, you know, a lot of work went into that during that lockdown period, and I appreciate totally what Kate said as well. You know, it's really hard to keep those things up to date, isn't it? And people move on into various things, but a lot of the stuff on there it has got longevity as well. There's just 1 or 2 things which were festival based, but most of it would hopefully still be around in a few years.
Yeah. And Kate, were you aware of Inspiring Norfolk, and does that, you know, the resources that Penny's referred to, do they feature in the
It does now. Not before you spoke about it, although to be fair, I've been teaching in Suffolk schools, so that might explain why I hadn't come across it. But yeah, it is on the resources, and actually I spent quite a lot of time bouncing around it, kind of going, oh, I wish I'd known about this when I was still in the classroom. So yeah, it's a really good resource.
Good. The other thing I think that's worth reiterating, and it was a point that we talked about last time, was what do we actually mean by nature connectedness? And whilst, you know, what the discussion we've just had has been very much focused on, you might say, learning and education, I think we shared, I think it was the last meeting, the model that the University of Derby have developed, where they've defined nature connectedness in other ways. There are a number of different dimensions, I think they call them, one of which is about the emotional connection with nature, and also, you know, the wonder of nature, and which is, okay, you can learn things about nature on the way, but there's something more, I suppose, something that's deeper and perhaps more meaningful in a different way to people. Obviously, our focus is on young people and children, and so I think as we move forward, I think we I would hope we can bear that sort of broader scope in mind, that whilst education and learning is very important, and you know, we've got a natural history GCSE coming up in a year or two, I think, haven't we, amongst other things, and the recent government statement about this, which again stresses what Ed was talking about, the green skills side of things as well. I think we mustn't lose sight of, if you like, that emotional, spiritual, sort of creative, deeper relationship perhaps with nature as well. Does that chime in with your thoughts on this? I hope I'm not speaking alone on that.
I think it does, yeah, definitely. And from experiences I've had, so I mentioned before, I used to be part of a school grounds coordination group that the county council ran. And part of that was about getting schools to make more use of their playing fields. And the dream was always to try and have lessons outside across the curriculum, so that ties in with this dimensions of connection with nature. So it could be, English and art and maths, but it could be science. And traditionally, people went outside for biology lessons or environmental science.
Yeah.
But they could use the sites for all those dimensions, all that connection.
Yeah. One of the interesting things on the university, the Derby model, I think, was about that creative connection with nature, arts and crafts, and using those as ways of coming to a deeper understanding. I came across that. This is a rather interesting little tale of my own. I went to, I think I may have mentioned this last time, went to an event at Strangers Hall recently, which was about children and nature. And we had a display there, the Green Care Network. And I went over to one of the stalls, and it was absolutely fascinating because there were loads of pictures of different types of ladybird. And what you had to do was make your own badge. And I couldn't resist making my own badge. So there you have, I think it's called an eyelid or something, ladybird. Don't pretend to have great artistic skills, but it was a wonderful experience just doing that and making you focus much more on detail and differentiation and stuff like that. Anyway, a little off the peg. So where do we go from here? I think really the next stage, Katie and Kate and that group, is really to sort of take this on in the way that you've started and trying to map what provision is already out there, and maybe starting to think about where the gaps are geographically, culturally, types of connection and so on. Whilst we're still talking about opportunities, I had a very interesting discussion recently about something called Backyard Nature, which some of you may have come across, which is a national scheme, I believe, run as a collaboration between an organisation that's now called Action Funder, used to be called Semble, and Clarion Futures, which is the charitable arm of Clarion Housing Association, and a number of other housing associations operating on a national level. And basically it provides grants, I think of up to £500, to groups of young people to research and carry out environmental projects in their area. So again, I guess tapping into the concern about climate change, biodiversity loss, and so on. And I have to say, very encouragingly, I had a discussion with both Clarion Futures and Action Funder, and they are keen to explore the idea of a locally badged version of this, so a Norfolk-wide version of this that would feature local housing associations. I've already had interest from the Flagship Group, for example. I think Clarion, as the largest housing association in the country, would also be very supportive. You may ask why the housing associations are interested. Well, it's literally from the point of view of engaging communities in their housing estates around bits of green space that surround those houses. Could they be used, developed in a more constructive way, i.e. to improve biodiversity, perhaps provide opportunities for food growing? I don't know, all sorts of possibilities. So that's something that I think we can throw into the pot. And linked with that, you may have heard of, I think I may have circulated information about the Climate Action Fund that the lottery are running nationally, and I think are about to launch a new phase of this. This is potentially big money, and the possibility of putting forward an application to fund a backyard nature project for Norfolk, but also possibly addressing some of the wider things that we've been talking about in other places about community wilding, for example. I think it's a real possibility. The timescale on that, I think, is the next window is January next year. So we've got time, I think, to perhaps develop this idea and also the wider proposal, if you like. So adult community wilding as well as children and young people wilding activity or other things like that. We've got the opportunity, I think, to develop that a bit further. So that was really positive. And the other thing which I'll mention, it's not directly relevant, but I think it might be of interest, is that in discussions with an organisation called Garden Organic, which some of you will know of, a national charity promoting sustainable gardening, and also the University of East Anglia, who again have been very supportive, we're going forward with an application to establish a community research network, again, Norfolk-wide. And the idea is this is a fund of money that's become available through, I think, a combination of the UK Research and Innovation Organisation, UKRI, and the Young Foundation, a charitable body. And they are proposing to establish a number of what they call community research networks, which are based on research projects developed at community level and based around the practice, if you like, practices that are going on in communities. It could be a whole range of different things, rather than traditionally, you know, the research proposal that comes from a university, shall we say. So very interesting, and it potentially builds into a whole range of things that I and others have been involved in discussing, like the Community Wilding Project and so on. Garden Organic have agreed to lead it, and they're currently developing a proposal that will go forward, I think, by the 15th of September, so it's quite a harsh timescale. Working with 4 or 5 initial delivery partners in different parts of the county, and the developmental phase, which would, if we were successful in the application, would run from, I think, January to March next year, would involve holding a number of face-to-face workshops with people that are interested in developing local research ideas, and then taking those forward perhaps through a series of online workshops to develop specific research proposals that they then go forward for the main bid that would then, if again successful, would flow from sort of next spring onwards. And again, potentially fairly significant sums of money could be involved in that. Again, quite an exciting opportunity, I think, and you know, would help us in a whole range of things. For example, talking about measuring the impact of certain things that are being done, whether it's green care or biodiversity improvements, mitigating climate change, whatever, a whole host of possible things to be evaluated, if you like. So a couple of discussions that are going on that I think could be very helpful and relevant. I don't know if anyone wants to come back on any of what I've said there. Any comments or questions on any of that? Obviously, I'll keep you posted on how we progress with things, but the research network is a pretty fierce deadline. I think we should know probably within about 6 weeks or so whether that's been successful. But it could be, yeah, Kate.
So is this, so in terms of community research, is this then sort of academic research opportunities for, say, I'm just thinking in terms of like the employment and so, you know, would this fund people to do PhD work in the community, or is it not that level of research? I was just, what kind of level of research?
It's very basic. It fits within what you might call citizen science, I guess.
Right, okay.
Yeah, which is a phrase you're probably familiar with. So it's about engaging the community in not only shaping research project, but actually carrying it out as well. You know, as I say, could it be anything from, you know, Garden Organic are obviously interested in it from the sustainable food growing point of view. So are there new approaches and techniques to food growing that could be trialled in different parts of the county? equally, if we think about the other, as I've called them, shades of green, so biodiversity improvement, promoting health and well-being, measuring the impact of activities that are going on or that are planned, could feature as, you know, an element of that overall programme. And there would be input, you know, UEA's role would be providing support. There would be a number of other organisations that would be supporters and would provide, you know, advice and expertise to get, you know, make sure the research projects properly planned and delivered and so on and so forth. Ed, yeah.
Yeah, hi. Do you know who the 11 delivery bodies are, or what type of organisations? Are they parish councils or schools?
No, I did email around quite widely. Hopefully you received something from me about this, and we've had a lot of interest. I won't divulge the names of the organisations, because there's discussions going on at the moment. But basically, they are community organisations or groups of various kinds that are involved, if you like, in the green agenda in some way. And at the moment, we're looking at possible locations in Norwich, in sort of Greater Norwich area, in North Norfolk, in the Great Yarmouth area, and then in the sort of the mid and midwest sort of area of Norfolk. So probably 4, maybe 5 organisations, you know, acting as the initial hubs, if you like, of these workshops, and then getting the development activity going forward. All right.
Thanks. Yeah.
More information in due course on that, I think. Yeah. Anything else anyone wants to pick up on that? Sorry to have rambled on a bit, but two I think quite interesting developments that hopefully will contribute to what we've been talking about. I'll talk a bit more as well, I suppose, about resources and involvement and communications, because on the involvement and communications side, Alice, who is with us in spirit, if not in voice, has been very helpful in developing the approach to communications. And I think she's working on what you might call a communication strategy for the campaign, which we'll hopefully hear more about in due course. In terms of involvement, a couple of very interesting developments recently. I think I mentioned at the last meeting, or it was mentioned, that Sam Mason from Momentum and Amy Gedge had also made contact with the youth advisory boards around the county, who were very interested in the First Nature campaign. I think they all had, if you like, a green agenda, though they were coming at it from different angles, I think was the message back. So I think that's an area that we need to pursue in terms of our next stage, to make contact with them and see whether we can get direct involvement in the discussions that we're having. But also coincidentally, I went along to a launch recently of something called the Green Influencer. Anyone heard that? This is a project that's run by an organisation called the Green Influencer, charitable body. Alex, can't remember his surname now, and he's the local guy who's been running it. Isabel.
Oh no, I don't mean to interrupt you. It's just I did see it. I saw it in the Andros Foundation exhibition. Broads Authority have been running a project, haven't they? That's and I saw some of those there. Anyway,
yeah,
sorry. Carry on.
Yeah,
I don't want to interrupt your flow. Yeah, go.
Yeah, I mean, in short, basically, it was a project that got a group of youngsters, I think about eight of them, sort of teenagers, together, who were obviously concerned about climate change, biodiversity loss, etc. And the project was to create a newspaper, which they did. And I went along to the launch of this at the forum, or sorry, the library, in the Millennium Library. It was great. Lots of very interesting articles and all that sort of thing. But what was a concern was that it's stopped. It's a one-off. It got me thinking, well, in terms of our communications, should we be thinking about something similar? Not necessarily a newspaper, but something that is by kids, for kids, putting it very blankly. I don't know what you feel, but I mean, that's a possibility. One way of, if you like, getting youngsters involved directly in the campaign. Kate.
Yeah, my thought would be, knowing my friends' children and children I teach, YouTube or something video blog based is how you reach kids now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, it was interesting. They chose to do a newspaper. It was with the library's involvement, I think, and I think it was based to some extent, at least, on the historical record that they have at the Millennium Library of old newspapers. And I think, you know, it's part of the project was actually looking at those and seeing what they conveyed and how they conveyed it and so on. So it was a bit like it was a retro look, if you like, at what a modern newspaper might look like. But it begs the question, you know, if something like that was available in paper form, as well as maybe social media, would be an audience for it in terms of youngsters? I don't know. It's a question we can perhaps look at. The other one, which again, it actually occurred really at the launch. I met a couple of youngsters who are involved in the Young Activist Network. If you've come across them. This is a project being run by the Mancroft Advice Project, MAP, in Norwich. I met two of their representatives there who spoke a little bit at the launch, and they are very interested in First Nature and would like to come on board directly. So they couldn't make today, but I think they're interested, and with your agreement, I'd like to invite them along to our future meeting. These are, again, a group of teenagers that are getting actively involved, which is a good example, I think. That's it, I think. I don't think we're going to hear from Alice because of the communication issues, but I would hope, Alice, if you're listening, maybe we could get together again in a sort of communications and involvement group again within the next 2 or 3 weeks, and just review where we got to and think about next steps, if that's all right.
I did tell her that that if she wants me to say anything on behalf of WhatsApp, so I haven't heard anything.
Okay, fine. I'll hope that's acceptable. Anyone, any other comments or questions on the involvement and communication side? Excuse me. Claire.
Thanks, Nigel. For me, knowing how a bit of learning, I guess, from supporting the vaccination programme after the last 2 years, and we're now going into flu, etc. And I know this isn't, I haven't been supporting children and young people as much, although we have in some cohorts. What I would say is actually, I don't feel like we're being very inclusive at the moment. We have lots of pockets within Norfolk and Waveney, and I know we're talking very Norfolk side here. We have and it's I don't know if we can align those boundaries to the health, and so at the health system, I don't know, because we do include Great Yarmouth and Waveney in all of our communications. But what I would say, and the point I'm trying to get to is we had to take the vaccination bus, so a very much mobile operation, if you like, to the heart of the communities. And we had to take interpreters, we had to change the language of all of our literature, because the communities that we were trying to support, which were those that were classified as they were an unmet need, because the health system hasn't been very good at supporting them, they read certain languages. So what's a vaccination to us isn't a vaccination to them, as a for instance. And I suppose my point is, are we being inclusive enough? Are we going to, if we want to reach those difficult, hard to reach groups, then we do absolutely need to take the campaign to the community, because and they might not be looking at YouTube, and they certainly aren't. There is certainly a lot of areas of deprivation within Norfolk and Waveney, where access to digital equipment is just not an option. It's not a thing.
Yeah.
And that percentage is quite high.
Yeah. Very good points, Claire. I totally take it on board.
Mindful of that, as that was an unmet need that we didn't find until a good 12 months into the vaccination campaign, because they are a very close-knit community who keep themselves to themselves, and support each other on a peer-to-peer point of view rather than access health and social care services.
Yeah,
what I'm trying to say here.
No.
I think if you're going to try and target hard to reach groups in 0 to 25s, then we absolutely need to land within those communities. And if that means being part of the vaccination bus for 2022-23, then so be it.
right. That's an offer, is it?
Potentially.
Excellent.
Thankfully,
No,
I'm not involved in COVID-19 anymore, but
Yeah,
I certainly have got the contacts and links there if you need them. But it's just a thought that has occurred to me during the conversations we've been having, that actually we're still not hitting the brief, so to speak, and making it really inclusive.
yeah. I totally take that point on board. And I think everyone else will. Then you had a discussion before, didn't we, about those hard to reach communities, put it in that way. And I know from my own experience when I used to work in Thetford, where we actually bought in a mobile bus to actually go around and provide a mobile opportunity for people to learn computer skills, for example, but also connecting with those communities literally on their doorstep. How effective that can be, I think. So I do
it
take
really
your
was,
point.
and we've had a really positive response from that.
Yeah.
The communities felt listened to, they felt involved, and then it started wider discussion within their
These other things.
within their district. So
Yeah, great. I'll let Kate in a moment, but to answer your question on the boundaries, I mean, what I'd like to do, I think, is to be a bit flexible. I mean, a bit like the Green Care Network. We say we're the Norfolk Green Care Network, but we actually take members from 30 miles, I think it is, either side of the boundary. So we do include areas like Lowestoft, so Cambridgeshire, bits of Lincolnshire, and other bits of Suffolk. So I don't know how other people feel. I mean, I think keeping it as a Norfolk thing is probably right, but I don't think we need to be too precious about drawing the boundaries. People agree with that? Yeah, getting nods, I think, as far as I can see them. Yeah, good. Okay, Kate, did you want to come in?
Yes, I was just going to say on the back of what Claire just said. It's certainly in terms of climate activism, it's a direction that I've seen a lot of movement in. I was on a march in London last year, I think. I don't know if it all swells together. That ended in Finsbury Park, and the whole point of the march, it was a link between local community groups and climate activists under a kind of banner of Unify. And at the final part, it had cultural events, singing, dancing from different cultures who all live within the community, and people speaking about how the climate is impacting their own home countries, the concerns. If you have a Pakistani community at the moment, people are going to be very worried about people at home. And it was an incredible, powerful event that had me dancing and crying quite a lot and thinking, we need this at home. And actually, I came home planning to organise something like that in Bungay, but then got involved in helping to organise Pride for another marginalised community and couldn't organise so many events at once. But I do think if we can start tying in climate and green events with cultural events that are already happening, and both ways bring cultural event, if we can work with those organisers of those events and people within the communities, that could be really a powerful way of reaching more people, because that event was phenomenal to attend.
One particular idea which I was thinking of mentioning, that it is early days. Some of you will know that we ran the first Norfolk Green Care Festival recently, which was 2 weeks of a mixture of events, some of which we created through members of the network, but I have to be perfectly honest and say the majority of which were literally hijacked. So Norfolk Wildlife Trust, for example, I think provided like 20 or 30 events. They were already running, but we slotted them into the programme and they appeared as Norfolk Green Care Festival. Interestingly, comments have come back. I wouldn't say it's particularly strong, but some of the people that I think were planning to attend some of these events did comment on the fact that they found that they were all in one place on our website as a festival, very helpful. Rather than having to go perhaps to the Norfolk Wildlife Trust website or something else, these were all in one place over 2 weeks. Now, we've got our annual meeting coming up in a few weeks' time, And what I'm proposing to put to our members is that we run another festival next year, probably again 2 weeks. And we have a theme for it. Now, here we go. First Nature could be a theme, couldn't it? We focus particularly on children and young people. And we ask organisations, Norfolk Wildlife Trust I've mentioned, it could be the RSPB, it could be a whole host of others, could maybe be asked to develop activities and events that address that client group, or as we've been talking, specific groups within that client group. And we run, you know, a festival over 2 or 3 weeks, which really starts to get the razzmatazz that you've referred to, Kate, you know, and you know, the profile raising that I think we're aiming to do. I don't know how that sounds to you. I said it's very early days and it's something that can't give a commitment to until we've had a discussion with our membership. But do you think that would be a good idea? 2-week festival? Give me some nods. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think wherever possible, I mean, it's kind of like holding space for each other, isn't it? That at our events, we hold space for those communities. But
Yeah.
I wonder if we could start working with other events and cultural events and get them to hold
Yeah, yeah.
space for us. If you see what I mean, like to
Absolutely,
hold
yeah.
space for nature, not
Yeah.
us, nature.
I didn't mean to reject that idea. I think that's a
No,
very
no,
good idea as
but
well.
I'm just
but-
thinking off the
yeah, yeah.
back of that, it could work both ways round,
Yeah, sure.
essentially. As well.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, some thoughts there, and I'm hoping Alice is listening, but maybe some thoughts that we could build into the communication strategy, Alice, which we can have further discussions about in the next few weeks. I'd love to move on, if that's all right, to really, I guess, the discussion about the launch, which I guess is the next key stage in this. Obviously, as a campaign, we don't necessarily have to have all the T's crossed and all the I's dotted when we launch. I think the whole point of a campaign, at least as I see it, is that we're actually raising an issue, we're raising the profile of the issue, and we're trying to get people, organisations to engage with it and develop and contribute to what we're trying to do. I hope that's a broad assumption that you'd sign up to. There's one specific opportunity coming up, and I'm looking at Isabel when I mention this. Your president is speaking on the 19th of October at the forum on the subject of wild children, wild in Norwich. I don't know if you knew that, but anyway, I booked a place on it. It's £3.30 to attend. He's going to be available, I think, between 7 and 8 on that evening. And what was going through my mind was, wouldn't that be a great opportunity to run our launch alongside that, given the topic of his talk? And obviously, I've not talked that with you, Isabella. It may not be on for a number of reasons, but I guess there are two issues. Does that sound like a good idea, first of all? And if so, is it something that perhaps the Wildlife Trust would work with us on in a collaborative way? Don't know. Do you want to come back on that first of all, Isabel, and let other people comment?
Yeah, I mean, I'm afraid I didn't know about that taking place. Maybe it's because I've just come back from holiday.
It's all right.
Literally
no problem.
just,
No problem. Patrick Barkham is the guy's name. Who environmental correspondent for the Guardian, amongst other things. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. No, I know who he is, but I wasn't aware he was talking about that on the 29th. That's on the 19th at the forum.
Yeah.
I'd have to come back. I'd have to
Sure.
chat to Natalie Bailey, our Director of Engagement, and see what he plans to do as well and how he would feel. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure if he's have you been in touch with him about Green Care?
No, I thought I'd raise it today in principle, and knowing you were going to be here, and obviously get people's views on whether it's worth running with that or doing something separate. I mean, we don't need to do that. It just seemed to me an opportunity that might be worth grabbing. But anyway, I appreciate that. What are people's views on that generally, though? Is that a good idea, or do you want to do something separate, different?
I was just double checking when Norwich Science Festival was, but it's February. I suddenly thought, oh, is that talk? Because I have seen, ironically, I've seen the thing about the talk. Yeah, I was wondering if it was part of Norwich Science Festival. Yeah, that's not yet.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the form the launch would take. I guess it would need presentation about what we're trying to do. Maybe we could get some youngsters along to give a presentation as well, because I think that would be very powerful. Maybe we need to produce some flyers, literally, you know, 2 sides of A5 that just says this is what the campaign is about. And I think, you know, we could probably fund that in terms of the network if we wanted to go that route. Kate.
One idea is we could host a young people's forum or assembly, like the citizens assembly concept, but a young people's assembly. We did that in 2019 at Thurston, Strike School Rally thing. That happened yesterday, and that could be a way of engaging any young people who wanted to come along. I mean, this wouldn't necessarily be on the same day an event as that, but having a young people's forum where the Young Activist Network, people like that, but we could either we could facilitate it, or there may be young people confident to facilitate it. But if there weren't, adults could facilitate it, but young people could hold this, you know, we could hold the space for them to discuss.
Yeah. As you say, that could be something that's freestanding, and the launch could be linked to that, or I guess it could be, you know, a forerunner to the talk I've mentioned. You know, it could be something that goes on late afternoon, early evening, and leads into that. I guess more, if you like, media orientated launch. I suppose I'm thinking we need. You know, we're about stating we're here and what we're trying to do over the next year or two, whatever it is, aren't we? So we will need some media coverage and press release and stuff like that. What other people feel? Any other ideas?
Yeah, I think I agree with what Kate was saying about the forum idea. But what level that is, and whether that's before the media launch or after, whether that is the launch, or whether it comes after with the sort of wider media launch. But it just made me think of, in the past, your schools would go to careers fairs, or there's been green build workshops and green build days, where you'll have all the different groups that want to attend there with a stall, and then we could send invites out to young people's groups, whether it's schools or clubs or whatever, and they could come as a group and visit the different stalls and hear about what the groups do.
Yeah, interesting.
Around East Anglia as well, and then you've got scope to invite people from different groups and beyond.
Yeah,
but whether that's the launch or whether that's just an event next summer or something.
Yeah, and I've mentioned the youth advisory boards. I mean, you know, we could invite them, couldn't we, to the assembly? Or
and again, it could be timed. Could be timed with when young people are making decisions about what courses they're going to choose and what career path they're following, as well. So
that would be when
an event that covers both things at the same time. So it's not a careers fair, but it would come at a time when people are thinking about whether they want to.
Well, what would be the time for that, Ed? Would that be sometime in the summer, spring, or?
I don't know. That's not really my expertise.
Isabel might know.
Yeah, and that kind of thing, if they're thinking about careers, tends to be in the autumn.
Right.
We're hoping to have a careers event, a careers fair in the AONB in November. So that's another potential moment that might be nice to launch potentially the campaign.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a potential option.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the Norfolk Coast AONB?
Yes, yeah, with Gemma. So Gemma and
Okay.
I are hoping to host a careers fair in November through
where
that
will that be
project.
as well?
Well, I'm hoping for Sheringham.
Okay, right.
I've been in talks with Sheringham High School.
Yeah. Well, dare I say, I mean, don't overcommit ourselves, but that could be, you know, another angle on this, couldn't it? You know, that we had the launch a bit before the campaign, but that event you've referred to might be another, again, good opportunity to spread the word and get some involvement. And
yeah, I definitely think it would be nice to have, you know, information about the Green Care Network and the campaign itself as well there. So that would be really nice.
Okay.
In any way.
Yeah, fine. Emma, your thoughts?
I was just thinking, if you're trying to get it into schools, what about, just off the top of my head, what about an assembly type, either a webcast where they could tune in at assembly, just to get out to more young people. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, we've got some sort of interested groups, but it's not, doesn't seem to be going. This needs to, from a environmental point of view, it needs to be like normalized.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? So that
Yeah.
all the children, not just ones with and young people that have just got a vested interest. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's again an interesting and a potentially very useful idea, and something that perhaps features as part of our involvement and communication strategy, not necessarily as a launch event, but certainly, that's another way of, if you like, you say a webcast which schools can tune into. We can reach that wider population of youngsters, perhaps. Nice idea. Yeah.
I've just checked as well. COP27 is November. So again, around when it's going to be in, media and consciousness. 6th to the 18th of November.
Let's hope it's for good reasons rather than bad, of course. Yeah. Okay, well, that's interesting. Any other thoughts? Well, should we leave it? I don't know if this is okay. Should we leave it, Isabel? If you could check out that possibility of combining the launch with Patrick's talk, before, after, I don't know how we would do it. I guess just checking that out in principle, perhaps, is the next stage.
I'm just emailing Natalie now to see.
Brilliant. Well, I've had lots of very positive conversations with Natalie ever since she's been with you, I think. And maybe we need to have a chat and think about, these other ideas of perhaps having some sort of gathering of young people at the same time, or immediately in advance of it, sort of thing. And who knows, I mean, I don't know what Patrick is thinking of saying, but it might well be that they could input to his presentation. Here are our thoughts on what is important to us in terms of nature, biodiversity.
Yeah, I would just say about creating a group, and this is something that I'm thinking of doing anyway, Norfolk Wildlife Trust having a sort of a youth group, youth advisory board type thing, is I think it might take a little bit of time to galvanize a group. Yeah. So it'll take some lead up time, and you know what I mean? So just that's worth bearing in mind.
Yeah.
Because we want them to feel safe. It's a safe space, and it's their space, and it's their voice. Yeah. So that requires some like friendships to happen before.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm not. That's just a point to consider.
Yeah. I mean, we could go back to this group, couldn't we? Who are said of interested, activists network, and say, would you like to organise something? I don't know. They've got their environmental campaign group, which they had a discussion on 25th of August. So I'm not sure where their discussions have gone to, on the extent to which they've managed to engage a large number of youngsters and so on. But that might be a starting point for us.
I think it's an interesting point as well to discuss about how you see climate and biodiversity, and how you see environmental issues, whether we want to affiliate with traditional kind of environmental activist groups, or whether you're trying to explain that the environment and biodiversity is across all aspects of life. It is to do with food production and learning skills for work, and just how you get to work, everything. It's not traditionally it's been sort of save the planet, or save certain species of animals.
Well, I think that chimes in with this nature, or this phrase I keep using, shades of green, that you can get involved in one aspect of this. It might be nature recovery, it might be climate change, it might be health and well-being, but very often the one will give you an entree or a benefit in one of the others. So a group who's growing their own food, they get the health and well-being benefits from doing that. They get food security, hopefully, to a degree, and depending on what they do, they might be improving biodiversity as well. So I think you make a very good point. But,
and developing business skills, if
exactly,
examples,
exactly,
think of things to do with them.
good point.
Which I know these
Kate.
groups are, lots of these groups are already.
Yeah. Kate.
Nice. The people who are here from kind of public health, social prescribing kind of backgrounds, in terms of young people and anxiety and getting them out in nature, this is where obviously the resources we've put together have been more from a teacher perspective, because that's where we come from. Are there things already happening around young people and children's mental health
Good
and
question. Yeah.
being in nature that we don't know about yet from my end?
Charlie, Charlie or Claire?
Kate, but from a commissioning perspective, but we are very much engaging with schools, and it's very much around mental health in the main. It's not just about nature, but very happy to link anyone up who needs linking up with that. So and I'll share with Nigel, who can then cascade what is going on from a commissioning and health perspective.
Very helpful.
At this current moment in time, but there's nothing nature specific now.
Yeah, good. Well, again, maybe an opportunity if we're talking about ways of connecting with schools, that part of what different organisations are delivering can feature, promoting this nature connectedness as one element in an answer, if that's the right way of putting it. Charlie, did you want to comment at all from the public health point of view?
Yeah, so we are quite a new team in terms of environment and natural and built environment team, and that's something we're looking at specifically with green spaces and social prescribing in that sense. So that is something that we're looking into, and that's why we've got particular interest in these sorts of projects. I think, Nigel, we did put you in contact with, or they sent you the email, but there's a team within Norfolk County Council they're renewing their green infrastructure and looking at creating more green, more active places and places for nature, I believe they're called. And right. I'm currently looking at the public health benefits of that happening, specifically looking at the mental health benefits of that. So that is something that we are doing currently.
Okay, that's helpful again to know as background, and you obviously, as that work proceeds, you can feed into this group opportunities to plug in what they're doing really and so on. Yeah, great. Okay.
Absolutely.
Any other comments?
And just sorry, in terms of reaching young people, and I don't know, you probably are aware of this, but I was just thinking a lot of secondary schools have the Green Flag Award, which is an award, because I used to work in a school and I ran this group where you can sign up for the award and you get a group of children together from across secondary school. Actually, it can be in primary schools as well, and you basically do an environmental review within the school, and then you lead some projects, and then eventually you get the award once you've completed all the different stages. Yeah,
I think you're referring to eco schools, is that right?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, Green Flag Award is something I've been involved with as a judge, but basically it's giving awards to open spaces like gardens and parks and so on to reach certain standards and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's eco schools. You're right. Sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. Again, another angle. Particularly Kate and Katie. There's something that's already happening. To what extent is it happening across Norfolk? Is it something that could be promoted more generally, whatever, in terms of the opportunities? Okay. Try to draw all that together then. If people are happy, if Isabel, you could see about the possibilities of that tie-up with Patrick on the 19th, just in principle, and maybe a bit of discussion. I'm happy to join a discussion about how it might work if it is acceptable. And see where that gets us, and then perhaps in the next couple of weeks we can review that and see whether that runs and how it might run, bring it back to this group for a decision, or alternatively think about the other options that we've talked about as well. Is that okay? Great. Thank you very much. I think that's probably about it from my point of view, unless there's anything else that people want to raise. As I've said, I think the next steps pre-launch, if it is on the 19th of October or sometime in the next couple of months, is to get as far along the line as we can in terms of these different streams of development work. So the opportunities that exist and should be developed, resources to an extent. Obviously, it depends on what we want to develop and what resources will be needed. And then, very importantly, as we've been discussing, involvement and communications, and how do we take that forward? What I'd like to suggest then is perhaps another meeting of this whole group in about 3 weeks' time. And I was thinking Monday, the 26th of September. Again, a similar time, if that's convenient, sort of 4 to 5:30 at the outside. Does that sound okay? I won't do a doodle poll. I'll hope that most people can make that. Thanks for the hands up. Yeah. Did you want to ask a question, Claire, or you just?
I do. Yeah, that is fine.
Yeah.
The date is fine, I believe, for me. I just wondered, Nigel, are you the one that's going to pull all this together? I mean, what are we trying? I know what we're trying to sell, but who's?
Well, I am at the
bringing
moment, I
information
suppose.
together to relay it.
Say again, sorry, the last point.
Are you going to be the person bringing all the information together?
Yeah, I guess I am in terms of these meetings and the information we have available for discussion and so on. Whether I carry on in that role is really open for discussion as we get a bit further down the track. I think, if that's okay with everybody. Did you just want to clarify that, Claire? Was that really what you were asking?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. Is that all right?
The sustainability of it, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, very, very important point. And, as we get a bit further down the track, as I say, when we are clear on what we want to do, the priorities and what that involves, then we'll obviously need to consider capacity within the whole group and whether we need to, supplement in that in some ways, funding bids or whatever it might be, I guess. Yeah. Okay. I'll take that stunned silence as agreement. Okay. Anything else anyone wants to raise? If not, enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you very much again for your time. We'll see what happens in the next 3 weeks and meet again on the 26th at 4 o'clock. I'll send around an invitation. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nigel.
All the best. Bye now.
Have a nice holiday, Nigel. Bye bye,
Thank you very much.
everyone.
Bye.
Bonjour. No, au revoir. Au revoir.